It's time to hear the story, make the connection, learn the lesson, and gain the wisdom. Are you ready? Let's get charged and be changed. The Sister Speak Brother Break Show. Conversations on grace, healing, and deliverance. This is Marcy Bush. Come on, let's journey together. Hello, and thank you for joining us for the Sister Speak Brother Break Show. As I always do, I have a special guest here with me today. This is my big little sister. And it's funny, we felt a connection of sorts many years ago, but it just didn't click. And then we got out the way and God did it. And he really did it. He really did it. So Sarah is actually part of Sister Speak Ministry. And I am so grateful for this young lady. She is a blessing to my life. And so I wanted to bring her here so we could talk so that she can bless your life too. I know that there will be somebody who is going to get something super special out of our conversation today. So thank you for being with us, Sarah.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I'm excited about it.
Good. You know, you were on the short list anyway, you know. Ever since God spoke it, like I said, there are just certain people that I start writing because I know some of your testimonies and parts of some of your testimony. And so, like I said, I'm glad that you're here today. So, we know Smiley Sarah, the one who seems upbeat, who always brings the positive energy. But I always believe that whenever we see that, there is something that got you there. I mean, yes, that has to be you at the core, but there is something else going on behind the scenes. So, tell me about little itty bitty Sarah.
Little itty bitty Sarah. It's funny because Sarah is my great grandmother's name.
Okay.
So I am her namesake.
Okay.
My dad wanted me to be named after her.
Okay.
And so growing up, I guess I always felt a sense of pride because my grandma and her sisters, my great aunts, they would always, want, on my dad's side, they would always want to get me and take me places because I'm Sarah.
Okay.
So, so little Sarah, I think I was, I guess I just remember I didn't really understand the full impact of my name until I got older. But I was definitely happy to have my great-grandmother's name. So we would spend the summer together. We would go to Savannah and to one of my aunt's house. And it was just, I don't know, I felt like that was probably the most perfect time in life. And probably where most of my joy comes from is just that little girl.
So you were able to tap back into that little girl. And I say tap back into because from my experience, I believe that we come here one way, that God releases us into the earth a certain way, and then life happens.
Yeah.
And when life happens, the enemy begins to try to change who we are or make us believe that we're something different. And then if we're blessed enough and wise enough, at some point we tap back in, or either we never lose all of it, you know?
Right.
So what were some of those life things, some of those stealers? What entered your life that began to try to unravel who you were?
So I just remember growing up, as I got older, I was always just a big for your age. As you know, I'm 6'1", so that started really early.
We should have stood up because that's funny because I'm like 4'11" and you're 6'1", which is why I said my big little sister.
Right. So I was 6'1", so I've always been tall for a girl. And so growing up, it made it feel like, all the girls are cute. They had little feet and all the boys liked them. And so here I am, this big, awkward, tall girl that none of the boys liked because I was taller than all of them. And so I think that's probably where that longing for acceptance, longing for, not that you're supposed to have a boyfriend in elementary school.
Correct.
But everybody likes somebody. You get the little Valentine grams. You're right. Yeah. During Valentine's, they get a little candy grams and stuff for everybody who got a crush. And it was just never me. Okay. And it was like these names I got called, like Paul Bunyan or Bigfoot. And it was just like I was this very big girl, and like I was taller than teachers in elementary school. Wow. So I just always had this large presence. And so I think from there, it made it easier for older guys who were tall like me. Gotcha. So it's like, oh, okay, so this guy's tall like me. He actually likes me. Okay. So I think that's probably where that stemmed from, me searching for somebody to just like Sarah. Like, gotcha. Or have a crush on Sarah. Okay. So, so going into that, like going into, middle school, I played basketball, and the boys would laugh, but you're developed early, so then you have breasts, and they're laughing because your breasts are jumping up. It was just always something, and then so I met my oldest daughter's dad over the phone. I never forget, we were having a phone conversation, and when I met him in person, I just knew he wouldn't like me because like it was easier to talk over the phone. Oh, I love you. Oh, he was so happy to be with me.
Was there an age difference there?
There definitely was an age difference. Let's see. I want to say he was about 6 years older than me.
How the ham sandwich did you know him?
So we met through a friend. Like it was a friend. He was talking to one of my friends over the phone. I don't even know how they met. So he was talking to her, and then ended up talking to me. And then I met him at my grandmother's house. And he was like, "Oh, you're so pretty." He kind of really.
And you were how old at the time?
And at the time that I first met him, I had to be 12.
Okay. So, and you said there's a 6-year age difference. So dude was 18.
So he was 18. Okay. And I'm thinking, oh, this is cool. This guy, he really likes me. And then once I got a little older, like nothing happened. He was just like really in love with me all the time. We would talk on the phone. And he was just so in love with me. And he was, little did I know, he was unraveling me. Gotcha. Like just talking his way into what he wanted. And so we talked and I mean, I know it was over a year because I didn't have a house phone, but I could only talk to him on the weekends at my grandma's house. Okay. And so I would talk to him, and it seemed like forever. And then one day, and I was 13 at the time, I let him talk me into coming over at night. Okay. And he came over at night. And I was in that vulnerable place. And so we actually had sex one time. It was the day after Thanksgiving. I will never forget it. Okay. And that was it. And 9 months later, I was in labor. Okay. So it was like, and I played basketball through being pregnant.
So it went from I had sex one time to I was in labor. You did not know you were pregnant.
I did not know I was pregnant until I was 9 months.
Mom and them didn't know.
Nobody knew. And we went to Whitewater's, we went to family reunion in July. Her birthday is in August. I was 8 months pregnant. And I wore a two-piece. Jesus. So it was not like I'm out here hiding a pregnancy. Right. Like literally I had no stomach. I had any inkling that I was pregnant. And then one day I go to the doctor for a stomach ache, and you're 9 months pregnant and in labor. So it was like no in between, no time to plan.
Did you go to the ER or you went to your doctor's office?
We went to the ER. We had some Chinese food the night before, and my sister was feeling a little sick, and then I was feeling a little sick.
Talk about food poisoning.
Right. So that's what we were thinking. My mom was thinking, she was like, well, if you're feeling bad the next day, we're gonna call your dad. We'll take you to the emergency room if you're feeling bad the next day. And all that night, I just remember being young. I grew up in church, so I just remember all that night I prayed. Every time a pain would hit me, and now I know that they were contractions, but I didn't know that they were contractions then, but it would wake me up out of my sleep, and I would stand up on the chest of drawer and lean my head, and I would say the Lord's Prayer, and the pain would ease away, and I would go lay back down. And so that lasted all night, constantly. Pain, get up and pray. And so I ended up praying all night long. And then that morning I said, Mama, I don't feel any better. So she took me to the emergency room, and we stayed there. It took them hours to diagnose me. Like we stayed there for hours, and it was a lot in the moment.
So how were you told the news that you had a baby?
So I never forget this nurse. She came in. She said, we ruled out everything. We cannot figure out.
Were you in there alone?
I was alone,
Okay.
because they, my mom and dad, everybody was kind of coming back and forth. And so the nurse came and she said, I have some questions I got to ask you, and we don't have to tell your mom and dad because it's patient confidentiality. So she was like, I got to ask some questions. I think we asked you these questions, but I don't think you were honest. So I was like, okay. She was like, well, we're not gonna tell your mama, just be honest. And so she asked me, did I have sex? And so I was like, no. She was like, Sarah, you got to tell the truth because we got to figure out what's wrong with you. So I'm 13. I know at this point I'm 14. So I'm thinking, nah, I'm still. So she was like really encouraging me to tell the truth. So I was like, yes. And then she asked me when, and I told her the one time. So I never forget, she left out of the room.
By then, you're still not calculating?
Not calculating. I'm 13 years old. Not calculating why this lady is asking me have I had sex, but I did know I had sex one time. I knew the one time. I knew the exact date. Wasn't. And so when she came back, she said, we got some good news and bad news. And I was like, okay. She said, well, the good news is we found out what's wrong with you. And so she was like, this other news is bad, just depending on how you want to take it. She said, baby, you 9 months pregnant and in labor. And my 13-year-old brain, I guess, I don't know, because my mom says sometimes that when she talks about it, she says I was out of it. So I don't know when I came to.
Okay.
Because, like, to me, it made no sense. I just remember them trying to stop my labor. They had my legs up in the air because my baby had no prenatal care. They didn't know anything about her at that point. And they were trying to prevent labor. But it was like they couldn't prevent it. So I had a complete natural birth at 14 years old. And like literally just turning 14. It was the weekend that school was supposed to start. I was supposed to start high school that Monday. And I was having a baby, which was the most, most like crazy thing. And so my mom was like, a lot of times I looked like I was just out of it. I was zoned out. But that was a traumatic experience.
Heck yeah.
So
self-preservation. Like, you got to find a coping mechanism. Let me just check out.
Right. So I'm sure I checked out. I remember my friends came and visited me. That's probably the only thing I remember about the hospital is that my friends came, and I was so grateful because that gave me just a sense of normalcy.
That's what a 14-year-old wants, friends.
Right.
They're friends to show up.
You're right. And they all showed up, and we laughed, and then they ended up having to leave because I laughed so much that my blood pressure was high. And so they ended up having to leave. But they actually, I think that's the moment that I came back to, because I remember them asking me after that, did I want to give my baby up for adoption? And they were like really pressing that issue. And my mom was like really upset. But they told my mom that at this point I'm an emancipated minor. And like, it's so funny because I remember all these terms, but I didn't know what they meant then.
Right.
But now it's like, oh.
So because you had the baby, you had become, wow.
It automatically made me an emancipated minor. So they was like, ma'am, they were telling my mom, this is not your decision. This is her decision to make. If she wants to give this baby up, she can give the baby up. And my mom was like so angry about it. But I never had the urge of wanting to give her up. I never thought about like life without her or wanting to give her up. But I just remember that being the option on the table. Okay. And my mama was like, through the roof with it at that point. She was already through the roof with the fact that I had a baby, and now these people are trying to take the baby.
Right.
And so so I think like from being young and then a mom, like it was like I was a kid, then this thing I know I was a mama, and it was like nothing. Like, okay, so now I remember my mom.
So you a kid mama.
I'm a kid mom, and my mom said, you're gonna raise this baby and you're gonna finish school. Okay. And I just remember it was like, okay, this ain't the time for you to drop out. You go ahead and get a job and raise a baby. So In my neighborhood, I grew up in the projects. So in my neighborhood, there was a daycare center right across the street from my house, and they helped young moms.
Okay.
And so I was able to get into a program where they actually, my baby had daycare, and I didn't have to pay for daycare.
Oh, that's good.
So while I was in school, she was in daycare, and it worked out. I mean, I know it was nothing but the grace of God, because I'm just like, I think about the ladies who ran the daycare and who treated my baby like their own, and they would do her
Do
hair.
you ever see him?
And that's the thing. No, I never see any of them anymore. But they were older, so I don't even know. I don't even remember all of their names, but I do remember some of them.
Okay.
But I just remember that they took care of my baby during the time that I couldn't. I had to go. Like, I literally had. That was that press for me to go to school, and then I was like, okay, so now I'm already big. So no, if you ever. Tall people never want to get kept back or left behind.
Okay.
You're gonna be a whole nother group of little people.
Child, I could still be in 6th grade.
Exactly. So for me, it was like, so now I got this drive. Okay, so I ended up going to summer school. And I ended up doing, things so that I could actually graduate with my class.
Okay.
And there was that press. And then to also be a mom on top of that. So if I did things like, teenagers do, you want to go to the games. So then I got this little kid that's at the games with me. And so we tell people that all the time because they think we're sisters.
I was going to say, did people think you just had your little sister with you?
Everybody knew because it was like that whole whisper and chatter, because I didn't start school till 6 weeks after everybody else. So, so when we would go to games and stuff, everybody knew that was my baby. And I think probably the thing that bothered me the most about being a teenage mom and being completely honest was that her dad just completely disappeared. Okay. Like I told him that as we became adult friends, I did tell him that one time. I was like, you made me a back to school story.
Wow. So when you had the baby, did you tell him? Did you get back in touch with him then?
Yeah.
I'm sure word made it to him. Well, did people know that he was the father?
But see, and that's the thing. People didn't know him. I mean, like he was from another neighborhood.
Okay.
So the people that knew him, the people that did know him knew that this was his baby. Well, I was saying, because at this point it was my word against his, because then he had said that it wasn't his baby. So then I'm just like, wow, like literally we had sex and I never saw him again. He saw her once when she was 1 year old, and that was it. And he never came back, never tried to help, never did anything. And my mom really, really wanted to get to him. Like she was upset and she wanted him to, go to jail for what he did. But at the end of the day, like I'm grateful for that period. Like I have an amazing young lady in my life. But
what do you? Brilliant,
oh
beautiful, all of that.
Right, and breaking all the generational curses that we came in contact with. So it's seeing her grow and develop. It's like now I know why. Now I understand why. But then it was just like growing up, like I think that was like this stigma of, okay, so now you're a teen mom and you don't know who your baby daddy is. So now everybody think you a hoe, like because you don't have a baby, and that means you was out here sleeping around, and the baby daddy ain't nowhere to be found. And so I was never that girl. Like so then I grew up in life trying to prove that I'm not that person. Like that's not who I am. And so it was a no-go for everybody from that point. Okay. Like until I actually met my husband, and I met him when I was 16 and a half.
Okay. So you had the baby at 14 and then met him at 16 and a half. Okay.
Met him at 16 and a half, and it was still always even dealing with him.
He was really short, right?
Unfortunately, it was great. Look, so that was my next tall experience. That was my next tall experience. And I never
How tall was he?
6'5".
Okay.
So it was when his friend his friend was dating one of my friends, and he was like, "Can we come over?" And I was like, "Yo, you can't come over unless your friend over 6 feet tall." I'm so sorry.
Oh my goodness.
Because that's always been something that I guess, just being tall and not comfortable with my height and always being around people that are way shorter. It's always been this thing, okay, I don't care who I date, where I am, you got to be at least 6 feet tall. So yeah. Okay.
And so you met him. Well, let me back up. You said you're 16 and a half. You're still in school. Now was Henry older?
Yeah, Henry was older.
Okay.
Henry was exactly 4 years older than me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when we met, he was older, and we just hung out. It was like, no, yeah, I'm still on this whole mission to. I'm not a hoe, so there's nothing happening. And so, but I was grateful because he was just like this kind, gentle giant, and he was not pressuring. He was like, oh, let's go to the movies, let's do these things, and it was never like any pressure from him for. Like, cause I was like, okay, cause I done been down, I'm thinking to myself, I done been down this road before, so everything is like a no. And so he was really, the person that kind of maybe understand like how it is just to be a normal person and happy, a normal child. And cause honestly, I always, for me, it was like, okay, guys only want sex. Gotcha. And that's because I developed so early, and that's what guys were always looking at your breasts, looking at your boob. You know, they were always looking. So for me, it was like, okay, I don't know what you want, but you ain't getting sex. It's not a thing for me. So, but yeah, so he was pivotal in showing me that it's more to life than just people focusing on that.
Yeah. Did he take to Samantha?
So immediately when they met, they were like, two-piece. Like, me and him went out on a couple dates, and then...
And Samantha is your daughter.
Samantha is my oldest daughter, and we met when she was 2 going on 3, or was she 3 going on... I think she was 2 going on 3. So we went out on a couple dates, and then he ended up meeting her, and my little sister, who her and Sam are really close in age. Okay. She told Sam, she was like, oh, that's your daddy. And so I'm like horrified. I'm petrified now because now she's thinking that this is her dad. Okay. And immediately he was like, okay, I'm her dad. Aww. And it was, he never missed a beat. His family never missed a beat. That was their child. He wrapped her. I mean, I started working, going to school. And there were times I didn't have anybody to keep her. He would come and get her. He lived 30 minutes away. He would come, he would come get his baby. It was no worries. He worked at night, so he would come take me to work. It was just like this really great guy that we met that came into our lives. And it was like God just gave her the dad that she needed and wanted. And like we really didn't sit down and talk about him not being her father until she was almost grown. Really? When we really had the conversation about, there was this other guy and this happened. And she did get a chance to meet the other guy, but she wasn't even interested in having a relationship with, because she felt like she had a dad. Like her dad never missed a beat. He was there for every part of her life. So,
And so you two ended up getting, well, were you married or did y'all stay together? Did you get married?
Yeah,
how did that go?
So I ended up so I graduated high school at 17, and then so we were together for a little while after that, and then I got pregnant with my middle daughter. Okay. And I was 19 going on 20 when I got pregnant with her. And so then we lived together for a long time. I mean, we were always together from that point in life. And so then we ended up getting married. It's so blurry.
Marriage is blurry?
No, like when we got married, because honestly, when we got married, it was like, okay, I don't want to live like this anymore. Okay. I started going to church. I really started going back to church because I was grown and I had, had to find my own way back. So once I found my way back to church and just really being steady in the word and then hearing this call on my life, it was like, okay, I can't live like this. Like we've been living like this long enough. So I want to say we had been together right at 10 years when we got married. Okay. And it was like, okay, it's just time. It's time. Like, we got to live right before God. So,
and how old was second daughter Ayana at that time?
Yes. I want to say, You don't
know. You just said it's blurred. So.
Right. It is very blurry. I want to say.
Was the baby born yet?
Morgan was born. She was a baby.
So you had all 3 of your babies?
Right. Before we got married.
Okay. You think it's okay?
My marriage certificate one day, I was like, "Oh, this makes sense." I have to look at the marriage certificate. We just always say "Oh, we've been together for over 20 years."
Gotcha.
Like we never even really counted, but we literally there was no like formal wedding. We just had we just went to a park. We had a notary. My friend knew a notary, and she was the witness, and that was it. And we went and got Mexican food after that. So everybody was like, no, you didn't. Everybody was like very upset with us that we didn't have a wedding. Nobody was invited. We were supposed to get married on July 1st. We argued the entire day and called it off.
Oh my goodness.
Then we had to call the lady back the next day and say, are you still available?
See.
So we got married on July 2nd. That I do remember.
Okay.
But yeah, so it was just, so we ended up getting married. And that was just to be right in the eyes of God. Like, it's like, okay, we've been living together. I can't do this no more. If you want, that's fine. If you don't want to marry me, I'm okay with that. But I can't live like this no more.
And so while we're on, you talking about the call that you were feeling, you wanted to be right in the eyes of God. You slid on back in the church.
Slid on back in there.
And then ended up sliding on into a pastorate.
Ooh, that's funny. So I accepted my calling in ministry, got ordained, did my little trial sermon, then got ordained, and then so I was under a pastor, and he had started a church, and I followed him out of my home church. And so this is me. I guess that part of longing for acceptance. And so this was like my family at this point. Like, we did everything together. His kids called me Auntie Sarah. This was my family and talk. And so so one day he decided that he was going to Texas. I was like, okay. He was like, and I want you to, do this in my stead while I'm gone, I'll be back. He was doing a revival. I was excited to, him from going, and I could hold it in the road till you got back. And the stay got longer, and we would have these meetings, these conference calls, and while he's in Texas, and then the stay got longer and longer. And then I never forget, coming up to Christmas, it was coming up to Black Friday. And he said, the church is doing well, souls getting saved, it's growing, you're doing a great job. And he was like, I'm gonna make Sarah to sing, I'm gonna step down and I'm making Sarah the singing pastor.
You heard it with everybody else?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it was no having a meeting with me. It was everybody on the conference call and Sarah's pastor.
Okay.
And I was like...
So it became Black Friday for a different reason for you.
For a whole different reason. I'm just like, I'm good with just preaching every Sunday, doing my thing. But it's a whole nother weight.
Thanks so much for joining us today. If you've been blessed by today's show, feel free to let us know. And if you'd like to sow into this ministry, become a sponsor, or contact us, you can reach us at 803-221-0169. Or you can email us at the ssbbshow@gmail.com. Let's continue this journey together. Missed any of our past episodes? Catch up on past shows on my YouTube channel at Marcy Bush, MarceyBush. And be sure to subscribe so you won't miss any future episodes.